On Wednesday, the World Health Organization Director General announced that the WHO would increase its pandemic alert to level 5, launching a global mobilization to immediately produce vaccinations for the spreading swine flu. However, according to recent reports, were that to happen, it would interfere with or jeopardize the ordinary vaccinations that are needed to protect the population against the flu generally. Some people in response to this situation are asking, "Gee, what do we do? Do we kill the old people who need the vaccination to live because for them a flu would be deadly, or do we save fewer people from the swine flu?" Lyndon LaRouche made clear in his webcast on April 28th that the breakdown of the physical economy, as we have been experiencing on a global scale, always leads to the outbreak of the conditions for mass pandemics. And unless U.S. President Barack Obama is induced to shift immediately away from his current policies towards solving the ongoing physical economic breakdown, we will continue to be plunged into a global catastrophe beyond belief. So we must mobilize against this crisis and start with the United States of America, with President Barack Obama mobilizing the international community to assist the threatened nations of the world, including the United States, from this, if not contained, possible global pandemic. Qualified health professionals are needed to identify, screen, and isolate people who are contagious. Those who are already sick need antiviral medicines like Tamiflu, which the United States and other nations can provide. The idea of tossing a coin to see who will live or die is not only criminal, but unconstitutional. As it states in our founding documents, all human beings have a right to life, and our mission was to spread the ideas embedded in these documents to the global community, because human beings live there also. This historic international mission has seen success throughout our history, as is evidenced most recently by the courageous fight waged by President and statesman José López Portillo of Mexico to change the international system and set up a just world economic order, which he realized was necessary to industrialize Mexico and to raise it to the level of a first-rate country. Portillo understood the concept of the Americas, and that's why he and his policies for Mexico were and continue to be so heavily attacked. There are those who would deploy against that idea of progress by spreading contrary ideologies, such as the current traitors who have, for now, hijacked the presidency. Environmentalism is probably the most dangerous among these ideologies today, as Prince Philip makes clear.
Human population growth is probably the single most serious long-term threat to survival, wouldn't for a major disaster if it isn't curbed, not just for the natural world, but for the human world. The more people there are, the more resources they'll consume. The more population they'll create, the more fighting they will do. We have no option. If it isn't controlled voluntarily, it will be controlled involuntarily by an increase in disease, starvation, and war. In the event that I am reincarnated, I would like to return as a deadly virus in order to contribute something to solve overpopulation.
This raises the question, is the swine flu something that was synthetically created and deployed with this desired effect in mind? We don't know for certain, but for now, we'll assume that it is, because the intention is clear, and will respond accordingly to defend humanity both from the threat posed by this pandemic, but also from the higher threat posed by the enemies of humanity, who would have the majority of the world population relegated to the status of human cattle. LaRouche warned for decades that if we didn't reject the policies of globalization, we would end up with the biggest financial crisis the world had ever seen. That has already occurred, but there is still time to prevent what would certainly be a global dark age if we don't intervene to change it now. This swine flu is only a foretaste of what is in store for the planet if we don't return to sane physical economic policies. Deal with the crisis at hand with the short and long-term objectives in mind. We must defend the vulnerable populations and treat the problem. That means building up our public health care systems again, reopen or open new hospitals, provide services the way Franklin Roosevelt did after World War II under the Hill-Burton Act. A containment of this pandemic should be followed immediately by the president calling on Russia, China, and India to enter into what LaRouche has been referring to as the Four Powers Agreement, a treaty agreement beginning with these nations to establish a new credit system based on fixed exchange rates, a system designed to facilitate the building up of nations as opposed to the looting and exploitation that has defined the past 40 years of economic policy. As José López Portillo said at a press conference in 1998, it's now time for the world to listen to the wise words of Lyndon LaRouche.
Y ahora es necesario que la sabia palabra de Lyndon LaRouche se escuche en el mundo, y ahora es por la voz de su señora esposa como hemos tenido el privilegio de escuchar.